All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Quest for Success podcast. Today we have on a former professional NFL player for the Cincinnati Bengals, spent some time with the Dolphins, Patriots, Arena Football League as well. He's currently a highway patrol and a coach at Porterville High School. He spent a lot of times coaching with different programs. We're super excited, grateful to have on Victor Lea to the podcast. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today. And we're excited to kind of share your story and share some insight.
Oh, thank you guys. Thank you guys for welcoming me.
Yeah, thank you for making the visit.
Yeah.
Every episode, mental minute questions. Get the juices flowing, right? Here we go. So, as athletes, we all approach the game a little bit different, right? How did you approach the game of football?
Well, it's just something that I fell right in love with, from day one. I got out there and it was challenging. It was hard. It was just something that, like I said, I fell in love with. And my approach to it was just wanting to be the best out there, wanting to work hard. And from a early age, I was able to learn those lessons. So every time I stepped foot at practice, games, or whatnot, I just, I wanted to try my hardest. I wanted to exceed. I wanted to do good by the team.
Yep.
You might bring the mic just a little closer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, probably like a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, you got to bring it pretty close. Yeah.
Okay.
Second question, what isn't the most important thing, or what's the most important thing I guess you learned playing football throughout your journey? You've played at Arizona State, all Pac-10 player of the year. How many times?
I was all Pac-10 first team one time.
First team, yeah, honorable mention. And you were a four-year starter for the Sun Devils?
Yes. Yeah.
So when you played at the professional level, what are some of the things that you kind of took away and you learned from the game of football?
Just never give up mentality. I think that's been ingrained at every level, high school, college, and in the league. It's that never give up mentality. It's the always get back up, always fight for your spot. Mm-hmm. All those good things that we've all heard about with football. I just learned that, hard work does matter. I guess another important thing. And I bring that to light now when I coach, particularly, in the youth and whatnot, because it's in an age where they're starting to mold themselves. And that's one of the most important things that, you can give to them.
Yeah. So high school, college, NFL, I'm sure you've had some people that are giving you some sound advice. What would you say is one that comes to the very top of your head right now? What is some advice that somebody gave you about playing the game of football that you still remember today?
And again, it's something that you learn throughout, all your years playing, but it's all about, you have to have some level of talent, obviously physicality, but the thing that always stays in my mind is your heart. You have to have the heart and the love for it. And that's what actually ultimately is going to get you through everything, mm-hmm. And I just kept that as I went through, high school, throughout the league. It's the heart and how much you have to give to the game to be successful.
You had a lot of pride in everything you did.
Yeah, definitely.
You've played with a lot of, Hall of Famers, different Pro Bowlers and whatnot, but who was like a player, whether it's at the high school, college level, or the professional level, that made people better around them, that you kind of remember playing with and was like, that was a dude?
Real easy in college. I'll start with college. Pat Tillman. I got to play with Pat Tillman. I actually got to be on the field with him 1 year, 2 years with him at Arizona State. But you talk about the love of the game, how guys like that just make everybody around them better, just with how they act, how they carry themselves out there. That 110% drive, practice, the games, and just how they carry themselves even in school. I mean, you see it through all aspects of their life. And in the NFL, it's easy also because I played with a lot of, I've been around a lot of good guys, but I mean, we all know Tom Brady, and I was very fortunate to be spend a little bit of time with New England, and just seeing how he carried himself, and everything that you've heard about him is true. Seeing it firsthand. Yeah. My first day there, I had to show up at 5 a.m, and I show up to the weightlifting, to get all my stuff set up, and I come into a gym just kind of like this, and I go in there, and at the very back, there's one guy working out, and it's him.
Yeah.
And you're still, even in the league, you're still like starstruck. You're like, whoa, that's Tom Brady, right?
Yep.
So, and right when he saw me walking in there, I was talking with my weightlifting coach and whatnot. He saw me walking in there, comes right up to me, and he knew my name. He said, "How you doing, Victor? Good to have you here. and I can't remember all the little things, but I'm just sitting there like, the heck,
The attention to detail.
Yeah, and he knew my name, he knew the position, I knew the lineman, and it was just stuff like that just made me feel great about and I mean, you can tell, why he's so successful.
Sure.
So much attention to detail. I mean, I was a guy that got released. I didn't play as much in the league, but he knew exactly what I was. He knew everything about me, and I've never met the guy before. So,
Yeah.
Anyway.
Going back to Pat Tillman, he was coming in when you were going out, or the other way around?
No, he was on
his way out.
Yeah, he's on his way out. Yeah.
So for those people that don't know who, especially the younger generation that doesn't know who Pat Tillman is, kind of briefly share who I guess he was and kind of what he did, because he's every year. You not just Arizona State celebrates him, but the NFL, the military world, and you don't have to go into all the details, but kind of like just a brief summary of what his story was.
Well, he's a high moral guy. He played football for the love of the game. He didn't play it for any kind of personal accolades or anything like that. He's just what you would say, a great all-around guy. When he's a undersized type guy too. He was playing linebacker with us at Arizona State at, what was Pat, like 5'10", 200 pounds maybe. But like I said, he was just on it, just nonstop type guy. So when he got to the NFL, he's underweight, whatever you want, undersized, whatever you call it. But through his hard work and everything, he got himself to a starting position. With the events that were happening at that point in time, with the wars and whatnot. Basically, he was in his transition year for his second contract in the NFL
At Arizona, right?
At Arizona, yeah. So he felt very strongly about the politics of what was going on with the wars and all that stuff. So he basically gave up his NFL career, enlisted in the Army, and from there, I don't know how long he was in there before, he lost his life in whatever event it was. But yeah, so he was that type of guy. Had a lot of pride for everything he did, football, his personal life, and obviously his country.
Selfless,
yeah.
Service guy.
Yeah. So we like asking this question, right? Explain, to everybody that's going to be listening to this and viewing this, your childhood, your upcoming, when did football, get introduced to you and things like that,
Well, it's my family is not a very sports family.
Okay.
I mean, I have little glimpses of like my brothers playing water polo, maybe cross country. My sister's playing tennis, but it was never something that was out. We never sat and watched a baseball game. We never sat and watched a football game. So sports kind of was just something, right?
Sure.
Through elementary school, we had basketball, we had flag football. So I was always very interested in that. I always participated, but just kind of like just a hobby. So funny story is just the summer before my freshman year, my now father-in-law told my now brother-in-law to call me and see if I wanted to join football at Wenatchee. And before that, I was like, when's football? I had no idea when football was. And, nobody in my family played or whatnot. So that was my start in football. Basically, my now father-in-law drove over to my house, dragged me out of there, took me to Wenatchee, and that's how I got started with football.
Full circle.
So it started late for you, football.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
So when did you develop Victor? Like when did you get that growth spurt? Or were you always somewhat of a big guy?
I was always a bigger guy.
Yeah.
I was always bigger. I was about 6'1" in 8th grade. I always felt like I could compete, even in that sense, I always felt like I was okay playing basketball, doing little stuff like that. But I'll tell you what, my first couple of days out there in the freshman field, it was bad. I was getting my butt whooped. Yeah. Little guys just getting underneath me, driving me out, whatnot. And
was it because you weren't a physical guy, or was it more of the form and the technique that they had on top of you?
Yeah, definitely. It was more of the form, the technique. I was still kind of like, oh, do I hit this guy? Do I not hit him? Because all my life I was the big guy, and all my life I had my mom telling me, to be nice, don't hit that guy, be nice. So I had that. And then once it clicked for me, it was actually, some of the freshman coaches that I had, once they kind of allowed me to hit that switch.
Ooh, watch out.
And then, so then that's when it became easier. Yeah. Easier for me. So.
And you wrestled at a high level, right?
Yeah.
You went to state?
Yeah.
Wenatchee?
Yeah.
So you wrestled, and when did you find track or the shot, throwing the shot put at the discus?
Well, I know you guys had Jim Short here, and so I did football, and then Drew Williams was the head coach. Jim Short, I think at that time was just helping out, or I don't know what involvement he had, but he was always there. So It was just a transition, they're like, hey, wrestling will help you with football, vice versa. And it was kind of, I saw a lot of my teammates also go into wrestling. So it's just a thing that you did. You progress to a different sport to learn a different skill. So I did that. And I did that for 4 years. I wrestled 1 year in varsity because we also had a really good heavyweight at the time who was very successful too. But so track kind of happened kind of by mistake because I originally went out for baseball because I used to play a little bit of baseball in elementary school and stuff like that. So that kind of transition, I went out for baseball, and one of the coaches there, I think, had some health complication, and he was out there for a while. So I look out in the field, and I see some of the guys throwing discus, and I was like, "Oh, that's kind of interesting."
Yeah.
So then I started looking. I saw a couple of my friends over there, so I asked about it, and they're like, "Yeah, come on." So that's how that started.
Yeah.
And so then I just kept that through.
And you're a big advocate for pushing, athletes to play multiple sports. I see the stuff you post, the conversations you and I have had.
Yeah.
Out of track and things like that with you helping our Burton track program and your kids kind of coming through there and growing that program. But you're a big advocate for getting kids to play multiple sports, whether it's wrestling to help football, track to help, football and all those things. So,
yeah. I mean, I think it's just, I think all sports for one reason or the other complement each other. So you learn a lot from wrestling that you can give back to football.
Right.
And you learn a lot from wrestling that you give back to track. And I mean, and vice versa with other sports, basketball, even swimming,
Right.
So all these sports have a lot to do with each other. And I mean, we don't think about it that way, but if you're a better wrestler or if you work hard as a wrestler, it's gonna translate to football and other things because of the balance, because of the strength, because of all the physicalities of it. And I mean, all these sports complement each other really well. So that's why I believe, especially at the young age, kids should be introduced to a variety of things.
Exposed.
For that. Yeah, exposed. And then ultimately, I mean, you never know. There could be a guy getting a scholarship at wrestling where he wouldn't be able to get a scholarship in track or football or whatever, or whatnot. So there's all that stuff that goes hand in hand with each other. So I definitely believe in that.
Yeah.
I mean, don't ask me about travel teams or stuff like that. But now, I mean, there's some good stuff to that too. But
Yeah. You mentioned a few coaches earlier. Who are some coaches that had a large impact on your career?
Well, right away in high school, when I went to Monache, I was very fortunate to go to Monache at the time that it was, without a doubt, it was Monache's golden age in football, wrestling definitely, and other sports also. So Mike Anderson had established the football program, was establishing the football program, probably a couple of years before I got there. It was when he was starting that. So when I got in there, I mean, we had everything. We had the mindset, we had the commitment. He held kids accountable. We had the machine in the weight room that was just producing. I mean, if you look back, I mean, there's so many guys that throughout his stint as a coach, there's so many players that D1 scholarships, so many players, not only for football, but other sports.
Yeah.
So I went to Monache at a time where it was just, nice place to be. Everything was working. Then we'd go from football to wrestling, which wrestling was just, in its heyday also with Drew Williams. So I was very fortunate for that. So I take a lot from Coach Anderson, who instilled all this, the mindset, the accountability. That's when you see your coaches there all the time. You see your coaches working hard. They're not just there, they're working hard. And that, and obviously other sports have that too.
Yeah.
So I was very fortunate in that sense.
how about at the college and professional level? Were there some coaches that had a huge impact on you, not just with football, but those kind of leadership skills and also like the coaching style that they had?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, and it's there's so much competition all the way around with coaches and whatnot. But yeah, definitely in college, my coach, Dan Gazzetto, he's my O-line coach at Arizona State. And just the level of toughness. I mean, you're talking about this guy was mean. This guy was just mean, loving, and just brought out the best in you. I mean, it's the type of guy that one day you're so mad at him, and then the next day you just want to hug him.
Love-hate relationship.
Tough love. It's tough love, baby.
But they get everything out of you. So, I mean, he's one of those coaches that, I needed that when I was going through. I needed the yelling. I needed the not the put downs, but I needed that. I needed somebody to put things in perspective for me to work harder. So, and it's another one, Dan Gazzetto. But, there's so many other coaches too.
Yeah. The strong criticism. Sometimes players don't take it that way.
Yeah, definitely.
So going from high school, right, to the Division I level, what was the greatest challenge and transition in that? You know, maybe it could be the physicality or whatever the case may be, the academics part of it, but what was the biggest challenge for you?
You know, the biggest challenge for me was just leaving home.
Yeah.
You know, because I was 18. I think Arizona was the first time that I went out of the state. And so I took a recruiting trip there. And I tell people this all the time too. You know, I'm going up the escalator. I'm by myself. You know, you're all freaked out. And they had two of the guys waiting for me. You know, some of the players that were there already, Juan Roque, Glenn Gable, which are monsters, are 6'8", 6'6". So I'm coming up the escalator. I'm looking at these guys, and I'm just thinking, I'm never going to play. You know, because I feel like, you know, I have size, but you're looking at those guys, and you're like, wow, you know. But then getting there, you know, it's obviously I came from a good program, so I already knew to work hard. I already knew to have a good mindset. I already knew that nothing is easy. You always have to work for what you have. So being there, I didn't have a struggle with that part because I already knew that. But yeah, just being away from home, having everything so structured and getting used to that, you don't have any time off. It's, you know, it's
new.
A lot.
It's new. Yeah.
How were those days? So once you got to Arizona State, you know, you're playing in the Pac-10 at the time, high level conference. What's your day-to-day kind of look like in the structure of that? I mean, you're having to not just attend class, but you're having to go to lifting and your scheduled practices as well as traveling, that whole thing. So was that difficult for you? And kind of what did those days look like during the season?
Well, depending on what point of the year it is, it's time consuming. It's very structured. If you're talking about off season, it's waking up at 6 a.m, doing your workouts. We call them mat drills, where we got together as a team. It's like a team building thing, but it's at 6 a.m. You're doing drills, working together, doing that stuff, coming back, going to study hall, and then talk about eating. Eating is a hassle because you don't have time. You have to go to school, and if you don't get, you know, to the chow hall on time, then you're going to miss out your first meal, and then, you know, that. So the time constraint is just unbearable sometimes, you know. And then during the season is even worse because now you have practice. Now you're tired. Now you're hurting all the time. So yeah, definitely, it's depending on what time of the season it is, it's just nonstop. And I mean, there's different time frames and stuff like that, but yeah, it's all day.
And probably a little different time back when you play. I mean, things have definitely come a long ways, especially in the big conferences. Yeah. Whether, you know, from the nutrition, you see these weight rooms now. It's like state of the art weight rooms, kitchens, and state of the art. So I'm sure that, you know, those things, especially in the last 10 years, have come so far to help, you know, the athletes to help get any type of advantage, right? Because everyone else is doing it. You got to be doing it too.
Yeah, definitely. Right. I mean, like you said, the weight room, when I was there, it's a nice weight room. It's by far the best weight room I've been to when I was there. And then they redid that whole thing. So now, it's twice as big. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about everything you could ever. Now they have an indoor facility. When we were there, you know, and Arizona's hot, you're up there in 120 degree practices, but, you know, times change, and still interesting, still fun. Yeah.
Clearly, you were a good athlete, right? How were you with the academics? Were you a good student as well?
I will not lie. I struggled a lot, and it wasn't that I struggled. It was because I wanted all my time to go into sports, and I say struggle only because, you know, I wasn't, you know, the 4.0 kid. I wasn't, you know, that type of kid. I was always more interested in the physical stuff. I always wanted to work out. I always wanted to practice. So I didn't struggle in that I didn't, you know, do my classes. I graduated in 4 years like I was supposed to. I took a year of the master's program in college. So I just say struggle because it was something that I didn't, at the time, was drawn to. Right. You know, everything was just based on your sports. And I mean, but for me, I mean, I needed that.
Yeah.
I needed that.
It was required. It was non-negotiable. You had to do school in order to do this.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So you also threw the shot put and discus at Arizona State, correct?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
So what was that like? Because I mean, you know, it's pretty hard to play one sport, let alone be a multi-sport athlete at the Division I college level in the Pac-12 or in the Pac-10 at Arizona State. So how were you able to manage that? And what was that kind of experience like, being a multi-sport athlete at the Division I level?
Well, first of all, I had to kind of beg to be able to go play.
No kidding.
To be able to go out for track because once you're in
it's
college,
rare.
you're committed to your program, and then your coaches, anything else you do, they see it as
a liability, possibly.
Liability. You're taken away from it. And I had to explain, hey, what's track? It's just going out there. It's throwing. It's not running. It's nothing physical. But I did it for the 1 year, and it was just I love track. I love track, and I love shot and disc and all that. But it was hard because I was still expected to do all the football stuff. And then in the limited time off that I had, then I could go do track. So I did it for 1 season. I started going for my second year, but then at that point, I kind of realized that I have to focus on football if I'm going to keep going with football, which I would have loved to have kept going with track. But, it was just one of those things. But, I was fortunate. I did it for 1 year. I thought I did pretty decent. I still saw a lot of potential that I could have, fixed, or I could have done better with that. But I did it for the year. So.
You knew what was required though to get to the next level though for football.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You have to make a choice.
When you're playing at that level, it's takes such a high, it's so demanding, right? And you start spreading yourself thin, and it's like you've seen that vision of wanting to go to the league and play professionally.
Yeah, definitely.
It's very hard, or almost damn near impossible, to be two great things at once.
Oh yeah.
Of
course.
So, but, sometimes more isn't necessarily always better, right? Because I'm sure, you already said it earlier before the podcast even started, you dealt with injuries.
Yeah.
What were some of the injuries that you had to, that you went through?
In college, string groin, string hamstrings, kind of minor stuff, calves, and then obviously your fingers get sprained here and there, being a lineman and stuff. Like you learn to deal with it. You learn to kind of play around some of these injuries. But it's just part of the game.
No surgeries or anything like that?
I didn't have any surgeries for football. Just like I said, in college was like those strings. I missed a couple of halves of the games. I had to come back, and you learn to play with pain, which is super hard, super tough. But moving forward into the NFL, that's where those little things started kind of, getting
adding up.
Yeah, adding up and really kind of limiting, my time there with that.
So you're eventually going to get drafted in the 5th round to the Cincinnati Bengals. But to end your career at Arizona State, obviously, like we kind of mentioned before, you're playing in a Power 5 conference. What's kind of the difference that you noticed between the guys that had a potential to go play professional football and the guys that didn't? Sometimes I guess it's out of their control, the physicality of it, but with like work ethic, what were some of those character traits and also athletic traits that really set the guys that kind of end their career there and the guys that move on?
And it's what I call finish. It's how I grade the kids even now that I coach them. It's a stat on our board when we're watching film, and it's one of the categories. It's your finish block. And I think that, along with technique and stuff, that's one of the things that differentiate you from somebody else. Because, for example, you're running a play, and you can do your assignment, you can do your block, but what are you going to do extra? Are you going to run downfield? Are you going to take your guy? Are you going to move him all the way down the field? Are you going to run downfield, make a play? It's that finish. It's that extra little bit of drive that people look for. And that does translate to everything else, how your work ethic is in the weight room, how hard you're going to work at practice. And it's one of those things that, like I said, it differentiates. It makes somebody more likable, more coachable. So that'd probably be the biggest thing.
Yeah.
It's just the level of these guys, how much more they're going to be willing to give every play.
Because everyone's good at that level.
Everybody's
if you're
good.
playing D1 football in the Pac-12 or Pac-10 at the time, or any Power 5 conference, or really anywhere in the country, you're good.
Yeah.
So we kind of covered, your transition from high school to college, right? You're going up the escalator and you see these 6'8" guys, right? Now you're going to the NFL. You're getting introduced to that. What was the transition like going from the D1 level now to the NFL?
Now you're getting into the speed of the game, because there's quite a big difference in speed. You think in college, guys are big, they're strong, but then you get there and everybody's big, strong, athletic, but then it's just the speed. It's just like another notch. I'll use this story. I played a couple times against Warren Sapp. Just a badass, for lack of a better word. I didn't get to block him a whole lot, luckily, but I've seen that guy. If you look at him, and I'll just use him for example, just because he's a big time guy. if you look at him, you're like, man, this guy, how can he move like this? You know, because he's big and everything, but you know, you're just like wondering how does he move that fast? But then I've seen him run down running backs from behind. You know, just from his effort, just from that finish that we're talking about.
Yeah,
the guy's taking off. I mean, he could have been like other guys just standing back there and just kind of let. But no, this guy would go after him, tackle him with running backs from behind, which is kind of crazy. So that speed that you don't know how these guys can actually do it. When I was in the Bengals, two of the guys that were there, I won't name their names because they're my friends on Facebook, but one of the guys, they're both linemen. One of the guys is trim. He's one of the most trim guys, you know, as far as linemen. He's 295, just probably has like 8% body fat. Then we have another guy that's, he's probably, I don't know, 350, about, you know, 20-something% body fat. So when they decided to race, and you would think the guy that looks like the part, right?
Yeah.
Right.
No, the other guy, you know, just smoked them in a 50-yard race.
And that's wild because it's one thing to watch it on TV. It's another thing to be on the same field as these guys. Yeah. Right.
Definitely.
So, I mean, you obviously get drafted. What's that whole experience like, getting drafted in the 5th round and then kind of starting your career in the NFL with the Cincinnati Bengals? Yeah. You're obviously, how long were you with the Bengals?
I was there, I got released at the beginning of my 4th season. So I made the team in my 4th year. I got released at the beginning of the season around that time. But I mean, it was just all the prep going into the draft.
Do you go to the combine or?
Yeah, doing all that stuff. I mean, it's just a process. Your mindset's for it. You know, I was in Arizona. I just wanted to be by myself. So I was in Arizona watching the draft, and I was kind of thinking 3rd or 5th round just from what I've heard. Mm-hmm. And then the first day, I kind of knew I wasn't going to go on the first day. So what's funny is the next day I kind of overslept a little bit. I woke up and it was already at the end of the 4th. And I was just like, what the hell? Mm-hmm. So I'm looking at it and you feel a little bit disappointed.
Sure.
But then at the same time, you're just anxious. I'm just sitting there watching, and no phone calls, nothing. I talked to my agent the day before and all that, but not a call. So I'm just sitting there. And then all of a sudden you see your name come through and you're like, oh, okay, now I got a big old, sense of relief. Then right after your name gets called, you get the phone call, welcoming you.
So it's after your name is called.
Yeah. So then after that, you get a little bit of relief. Now you have focus. Now, okay, now I got so many months to go out there and get ready. So you go into focus with that. And then obviously getting there is just, the shock, just kind of like the shock how I got to college from high school. Now it's another shock.
Right.
Because you still have to make the 53-man roster, go through preseason. You're trying to, the tryout still.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, the nothing is guaranteed. I mean, we, first, second round guys. I mean, I know people have talked about it. They do get a little bit of more leeway because there's a lot more money invested and whatnot. The later round guys, you still have to make the team. You still have to go through all the stuff, and you're not guaranteed any position. So it is very, very stressful.
So we kind of covered, the whole transition things. College, these dudes are big now. NFL, these dudes are fast now. You got to do your part to make sure that you keep up and stay on top of your game, right? So off seasons and things like that. I'm assuming that you were big on the weight room, right? And training and off seasons and things like that. Can you talk to us about your style of training and things that you did to keep yourself on top?
Yeah, okay. So back in high school, like I said, I was fortunate to be in the program. Our weightlifting coach, we had a weightlifting coach, Dan Terry. Yeah. And that was just so nice because back then it was bigger, faster, stronger. Mm-hmm. So we had that already. And then when I got to college, it was a powerlifting type of format. So we were big, we were strong. And then going to, so you're building, you're building through your early years. Once you get to the league, now you are building, but you're more on the sense of, not rehab, but kind of keeping yourself at a decent level because at that point, you just want to maintain, you want to alleviate any of your little injuries.
You're looking for longevity.
Yeah, so you train a little bit different. You get off of the heavy weights.
Right.
You start doing all the little things that you never did before, working on your hamstrings, working on your flexibility, your shoulders, just things to prolong your career.
Yeah, because you're now coaching at the high school level, right?
Yeah.
And so, just to share a quick message with them, tell them how important it is to get into a weight room. Forget the whole, structure. So, we obviously want our kids to have structure. We want them to be safe. We want them to be able to progress, but just briefly share with them how important a weight room is for their athletic career, even if it's short.
No, it's it's probably one of the biggest things you can do to prolong your career in anything you do. Not only just, not only to get stronger, to affect sports in that way, but also to prolong your career, to keep yourself away from injuries.
Yeah.
And just getting in the weight room doesn't mean that you have to be the strongest guy. Getting in the weight room just means you have to go through a good range of movements to strengthen up your body.
Right.
And make your body useful, because people have different body mechanics. Some people do good with squats. Some people do good with front squats. So getting in there, figuring out what works for your body.
Yeah.
How to shape your body in a way that, is beneficial for yourself.
Yeah. You're trying to get the most out of it.
Yeah. You can never start too young. I have my 10-year-old who's probably my laziest one, but he works out. I've had my kids working out their whole life pretty much. And you can see the difference.
Yeah.
You can see a big difference. Injuries go down.
Confidence goes up.
Yeah. Stuff like that.
So as you kind of progressed into your professional career in the NFL, what was it? Because every year, especially at that level, you're fighting for your job and you're trying to prove yourself. What was it for you that kept you playing? How many years did you end up spending from when you got drafted to when you retired?
So 3 full years with Cincinnati.
Right.
A little bit of my 4th year, and then a brief off season with the Dolphins, and another when I got signed with New England. It was probably 3-4 months, maybe a little bit longer. So and then I spent a little bit of time with the LA Adventure Arena team. So I think in total, almost 5 years, I would say, consistent.
Which is long. I think the average NFL career now is like 3.5 years. Yeah, like that, right?
Yeah, depending what position you
are.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So you spent almost nearly 5 years playing professional football, for a living.
Yeah.
What was it for you that kind of kept you in the league year after year for those 5 years? Like I said, longer than the average career nowadays. Like you said, depending on what position.
Yeah, it definitely is the love of the game. I will say that, because anything you do, you have to have some kind of commitment to it and love of what you do. And I think that's the biggest thing. And just liking that whole environment where you're somewhere where you're competing, you're somewhere where you're working, you're somewhere where you can see yourself grow. And let's face it, that's something that, it's hard to attain. So once you're there, you don't want to give it up. It's like it becomes a part of you.
So maybe, so this question is, you played obviously at the highest level. You played in the NFL, right? You played even at the highest level, at Division I level, and then you played at a high level, even in high school, right? So what would you say, in your opinion, is the difference between the guys who get the playing time and the guys that don't get the playing time in your way?
Well, I think in college, you get away with a lot more of just your drive and being the guy that's first to everything, being the guy that's the hardest worker. You're going to have a little bit more flexibility of getting in and, playing more.
Right.
In the NFL, unfortunately, there's a lot of things that tie into that. That does tie into it, being a hard worker, obviously being skilled and whatnot. But there is in the league a little bit of, if you're a first rounder, you're going to get a little bit more benefit than the third rounder. So there is a lot of that to it. And then on top of that, in the league, you're one injury away from the next set coming up. So, it's harder in the NFL for that reason. But I would just say what keeps guys going longer is their personal drive, injuries. If you can make it with the least amount of injuries. So I think for me, and I don't blame anything else other than, I had some bad breaks, but a lot of the injuries that I started having later in my career really start, hammering on you and kind of slowing you down, and it just becomes harder and harder. So if you can have a career where it's relatively injury free or just minor stuff here and there, of course it's going to prolong you a lot more.
Right.
And then obviously a lot has to do with kind of what team you go to. Some teams might have more of a use for you than other teams, and a lot has to do with your longevity. Yeah.
What was your mindset when you're in Cincinnati? Were you one of the guys, you were locked in when you were there, fighting for your spot? What was, I guess, the mentality? Because you do have, and I could be wrong about this, but just from hearing guys, you have a little bit more freedom playing in the NFL than when you do in college, right? A little bit less structure. Was that true, or is that not necessary?
You have a lot more time in the off season.
You're not going to class every day anymore, but
it is a full day. The only things that we lost going to the NFL is the classroom stuff, but you make it up with their classroom
film
stuff.
study.
Yeah. It's
Makes sense.
It's a lot more complex. I mean, if I could show you my college playbook to my NFL playbook, I mean, it's just it's 3 times as big.
Yeah.
Like everything you have to know. Every play has 5 different calls to it. The blocking assignments, the defenses are so much. There's so much structure to them. There's so many variables with
Complex
blitzing, with different looks, how they try to hide just a 3-man versus a 4-man blitzing. So there's so many things. There's so many calls. Every play is just, when I look at a playbook now, I'm like, okay, let's make it as easy as we can so the kids get it. But when you go to those levels, there's so much studying going on. And I mean, that's just the lineman perspective. I mean, imagine the quarterback perspective and all those guys. It's ridiculous.
I was looking at, I think there was like a video of practice. I can't remember what team it was with. Maybe it was Tennessee or something, but the quarterback, he was talking about that. One of the biggest differences is literally not just a playbook, but trying to make the calls and remember the calls from the coach. Like, cause you have your, embedding those calls for the linemen, for your receivers, running backs, everyone. And it's like a freaking whole paragraph you're trying to call off.
Yeah, there's this funny video of John Gruden. He has like 3 QBs, and he's trying to he's this, and the QB goes back. He can't repeat one thing that John Gruden said.
This is the video I'm talking about.
Oh, it is. Yeah. It's complex, and you're trying to make it as simple as possible, right?
Yeah, and it comes at you fast. I mean, those first couple meetings in training camp, you're writing notes nonstop. I mean, it's basically like a classroom setting. You're going through your plays, writing all your notes, and then on top of that, you still have to study. Yeah. So then once your day is done, you have to go back to your room. You have to go back and look at your plays. You have to go through your calls because the next day they don't back up. It's adding more and more and more. So
if anything, you're more of a student to the game than ever. Yeah,
definitely. It's pretty complicated. It's pretty complex. But that's what's kind of cool about it too. Then at the end, you're like, oh, okay, cool. I see this. I see that.
Yeah, starts clicking.
Yeah, definitely.
What was a day in the NFL like a busy day, just kind of a normal day? Still early workouts in the morning. Like, what did that all look like?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends. Preseason or during the season, but it's usually getting up at 6, getting to the stadium around 7:30, starting your meetings, breakfast. We have our walkthrough every day, come back for lunch, come back for treatment. You got to get your weights in. Then you come back and do your practice. And then after practice, there's sometimes be more meetings, more film. But everything you do in the NFL is taped. So every practice you have to watch it the next day. So we have practice one day, the next day you're watching practice. Everything gets scrutinized. So it's a long day. And I tell people once training camp starts, you don't have a day off. They say you have a day off. I mean, you don't have a day off. Usually your day off is like Monday or Tuesday or whatever it is. But your day off, you're expected to go back and do more film, do more studying, do a kind of a recovery workout. Yeah. And if you're not doing those things, guess what? There is somebody that's doing it. So you don't have a day off. I mean, it's just nonstop. But you just learn to deal with it. And that's just how it is. So,
how did you handle game days? Did you ever feel like a ton of pressure, anxiety, or anything like that? What was that?
Oh yeah, I mean, game days, college. I had a lot of fun in college because you feel you're younger. Football's a little bit more fun at that point. In the NFL, it's all business. It's business because all you're thinking about, okay, on this play, I got to watch for this, and this, and I better not mess it up, because there's so many variables. Like I said, so you're completely focused. I mean, there's some guys that are just sitting there going back through the playbook. Me, myself personally, that's all I would do, would go back through my playbook, read all the cues that we had. And then, your opponents. So in your head, you're constantly going back and back and back. Okay, what does he do on this? What does he do? How does he pass rush? How does he handle the run blocks? What are you going to do on your combinations? Everything goes through your mind when you're doing this, your prep time. And then it's just a time for you to kind of reflect on what you need to work on, what you want, your goals, what you want to accomplish in the game. It's very...
That's good. Did you have any pregame rituals?
Not really. I mean, other than, just taping. I would always tape all my stuff. That was my stuff that I did. I didn't want anybody to mess with that. I listened to music, but nothing crazy. Just something to kind of, relax me a little bit before going out there. So,
What do those last couple of years look like? You're going to spend a little bit of time with Miami and then with New England just for a short period of time, and then eventually to the Arena Football League. What did those kind of years and months look like? That transition of maybe a little bit of unknown, probably fighting for your job, kind of seeing the business side of it, probably a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, when I got released from Cincinnati, I did have a chance to go back to the team after I got released. There were some things that happened, but I did have a chance to go back. And sometimes I kind of regret not doing it, but other times I know why I did it, because I wanted to go somewhere and get a fresh start. I wanted to go somewhere that maybe kind of would give me a spark, because at that point, like I said, I was going through some injuries and whatnot. So Miami wasn't really anything other than being there in the off season. I forgot who their coach was at the time, but I know Nick Saban got hired right after the end of that year. So Nick Saban came in. I really didn't practice at Miami. It was just kind of more working out with the team and stuff like that. But Nick Saban came in and he wanted to make room for guys that, you know, that he would have wanted. And then when I went to New England, that did give me a little spark, because I just loved everything about the organization. So I felt really good going in there. Obviously, it didn't work out, but so when it comes down to that time, I mean, you're still trying to stay in the game. You're still trying to do your workouts. I don't know how many workouts I did with various teams, and you're trying to keep your mindset going, because then at that point you do start doubting yourself. You start thinking like, oh man, is this coming to the end? What's going on here? And you're doing everything you can. Obviously, you're fighting, you know, to keep your livelihood and whatnot. And then when I did do arena, that was just kind of me trying to stay in there, because at that point, you know, I wasn't having too many NFL workouts or whatnot. So I did arena, you know, to try to stay relevant, try to keep my conditioning up. But, you know, what happened with the arena, I just started getting hurt and all these injuries started coming back. So, yeah, at that point, I was just like, I think this is finally starting to come down.
Yeah.
Did you have any interactions with like Bill Belichick, or when you're at New England for that short period of time, a little bit?
Yeah.
What was his, how was he?
Yeah, I mean, not that the coaches at Cincinnati were bad or anything like that. I had Dick LeBeau was the head coach when I got drafted. A real cool dude, a real cool guy. He ended up, you know, he had a great career. He went to the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was the defensive coordinator there. Marvin Lewis came out there. So I had really good coaches, but the thing that was lacking there, and I won't go into it, but when I got to New England and the way that machine ran at that time, I mean, Belichick's everywhere. All the coaches are everywhere. You have contact with all of them.
Nice.
You know, you see Belichick quizzing guys left and right, you know, having a good relationship with them. I mean, he was around everything.
So he was, I heard like Julian Edelman was talking about, Belichick came up to him and was like, hey, who's that guy?
Yeah, all the time.
He's like, I don't know, coach. He's all, you know, you dumbass. You should know his name. You know his number. He's all, you better know it by next week.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, exactly like that. I mean, it was nonstop. He'd go walk up to you and ask you this. You know, he'd ask you, what's your blocking assignment on this play? What's your blocking assignment on that play? But always relevant. I mean, you're talking about, you're going in there and doing your workouts. You see your position coach working out right there. So that system was just very involved. Yeah, high tune. I'll give you an example. Like in our breaks in Cincinnati, guys are playing Madden. You know, they had big screens, so they're playing Madden. Guys at New England were playing chess, backgammon, stuff like that. So it's not that there's anything wrong with Madden, stuff like that. I can go on and on with those kinds of stories, but you see the difference. There's like a different mentality, and it's not. And over there, it's, you know, a little bit more cliquey. But at New England, it was all, everybody's playing chess, everybody's doing this. So and you can tell when you get to the field, everybody's on the same page. There's no wasted time up there. And
it's a big unit.
Yeah, and forget about it. You're doing everything. Yeah. Everything as far as like any little competition, as far as running, sprinting, everybody's trying to be first there.
Yeah.
So
how was like just the little details, like practice plans and like the how the practices were ran? Was that a lot difference between Cincinnati and New England, and how just they did the little things?
The structure was kind of identical. But like I said, in New England, it was, everybody is on the same page as far as there's, like I said, no wasted time.
Why was that, you think?
I think just because the mentality of there, the coaches, and like I said, there's nothing wrong with the coaches at Cincinnati. It was just that maybe at that time, the chemistry between the guys and the players and the coaches maybe wasn't as tuned up. I mean, it showed when I was at Cincinnati, we didn't have, I don't think maybe went 500 one time, maybe. And then in New England, like I said, everything's just in tune with each other. Coaches all around doing even the little things, like you said, like quizzing, like Belichick's in there quizzing you, little stuff like that. They were just more in tune. And I mean, plus, I mean, they had some good players too. You know? But if you look at New England, when they had their reign, they were winning not just with superstars. I mean, they were winning with all kinds of guys. They had some. I don't know how many different times you look at Tom Brady's line, and there's a bunch of guys in there that were undrafted, you know, and so.
I mean, even like everyone talks about, you know, he made a lot of these guys big names, but like Danny Amendola, Danny Woodhead, Julian Edelman, all these guys that dude's going down to next guy up mentality, right? And they made it work.
So you kind of covered, you know, talking about differences, you know, from your time playing at the high school level to now coaching at the high school level. What is the biggest difference from then to now?
Biggest difference, I think, the mentality of the kids nowadays. And I think we talked about it a little bit. It's not that kids are soft or anything like that. It's just they have a harder time adapting to working hard, working longer hours, stuff like that. I mean, I hate to be criticism. I hate to be negative about that, but I think that's a big thing. I mean, when we went through back in the day, and I didn't play youth sports, but just in high school and stuff, it seemed like we handle the yelling, we handle the practices just with a little bit better mindset. Nowadays, you have to really tune your practices and how you talk to people, because everything gets portrayed as you're being too rough, you're being too tough on them. And you're really not, because I mean, if you're coaching, you care. I mean, most of the kids that I coach, and they're older now, they all come back and talk to me. They all tell me how cool it was back in the day. So
they still have that high level of respect.
Yeah, definitely.
You know?
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all have those coaches. Like, I mean, Chris, likewise, whoever it was. Like, you know, there's times it's like get after your ass a little bit, but we know we still have connections with those coaches that we played for 10 years ago, and the exact same thing with basketball, baseball, and the guys that you played under as well.
Other than that, so to say, I mean, how many years have you been coaching now?
For a while. I started coaching. Actually, the first time I coached was in 2007. I coached Porterville High. I did track, and then I did 2008. I did football with Rick Stewart. That was my first time coaching here. Then I left, and I came back. I coached at Exeter for 4 years. I came back, coached with Menachie, and then that's when I was doing double duty. I was doing football at the high school, and then football with the youth. And then I started coaching track also at Burn.
Yeah.
So
been with us for a couple of years now.
Yeah. What is it exactly that you love so much about coaching?
You know, it's giving back in a way. I mean, obviously I love sports.
Yeah.
I love what they do. I love the fact that it keeps kids healthy. It gives them a good mindset. It gives them a good building block, for their careers, whatever they get into later on. And like I said, it's a way of giving back. There's a lot of people who gave to me, going through my stuff. And I liked very much to be involved with their lives, be involved in them, something good in their lives that makes them a better person. When you coach the youth and whatnot, you don't expect everybody's going to make it, as a professional athlete, but you do want them to have a good life, good career.
Exactly. So, you want the best for them.
Yeah, definitely.
So when you eventually are going to kind of hang up the cleats, hang up the helmet from your professional career, what was that kind of period like? Were you trying to find your purpose of like what you wanted to do after that? Because you're 27, 28 at the time, something like that, 26. Yeah. So you're still young, obviously, and trying to figure out kind of what you want to do. Because by that point, I mean, from 14 to 26 years old, 12 years, like football and athletics, and that's all it's been, the focus. I mean, it has to be to reach that level. Yeah. So what was that kind of period of that unknown and trying to find your purpose? Did you know what you kind of wanted to do, or it's just kind of trying to figure it out?
You're trying to figure yourself out, because it's kind of sad, leaving that world, because you spent so much time with it.
It was your identity, huh?
Yeah, it's my identity. Yeah. Everybody knew me as, Victor, NFL guy or whatever. And I mean, I didn't think of myself in that. I just wanted to keep playing. But I guess in just finding I knew I wanted to coach. I knew I possibly wanted to get into teaching. And then at that point in time, I was just trying to make my transition. I stumbled upon CHP just because my sister had gone through it a long time before me. And, it came up. I went with that, and I figured I could still coach. But I did know at that point that I did want to get back, and I wanted to get in coaching in some capacity. So yeah, it was just hard, man. It was just hard trying to figure it out. And then obviously I wanted to come home, but I didn't want to come home, So figuring out there's not too many things you can do in town. I mean, there's very specific niches you can get into, but so yeah, it was just tough.
So being a coach to many young men throughout the years now, and you coach your son?
Yeah.
Correct? So what advice would you give the parents, that do have student athletes? What advice would you give them to approach that relationship?
I would say to expose your kids to as many sports as they can handle at a young age. I mean, that's what I would say. I would tell them to expose them to sports, to let them fly a little bit, let the kids find what they like to do, but keep them motivated into it.
Right.
Keep them active. That would be my best advice. And maybe kind of stay away a little bit, let the kids kind of handle adversity, kind of, support them, but let them handle adversity and, let them get coached by a variety of different people.
Guide them, don't push them.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to kind of ask the kind of challenges with youth and high school sports. You kind of talked about it already, just, trying to get kids to be coachable, all that type of thing. You're currently coaching high school football at Porterville High School with Keith Thompson and those guys. And you also are involved with our youth track and field program at Burton as well. So you get to see, all ages, and you coach your own kids as well. Yeah. What are some of the things that, not just the challenges of coaching youth and high school athletics, but what are some of the rewards of it as well? So I guess what are some of the challenges today we face, but what are some of those rewards that, whether it's coaching your own kids or other kids?
Yeah, the challenges is just, what all they have to go through. I mean, they're in a stage where they have school, they're sometimes tired, they get out there, they don't have a good spirit for it. So you're just trying to overcome all that. You're trying to show them how to have good work ethic, how to be consistent. That's the biggest thing with some of these kids. They don't want to be consistent, and they get upset because they're not doing as well as they should. So that's kind of one of the biggest challenges, just keeping them on a track, helping them set goals for themselves to keep them going. So it's hard, but it's doable. And once you figure it out, it kind of falls into itself. Some of the benefits, like I said, it's just keeping them going, seeing them. When you see them get to their goals, past their goals, and that kind of the satisfaction they get from doing something positive. I mean, that's what we strive for. Seeing that, and then just seeing how they light up when they hit a PR, or when and they made a touchdown, or where they got it like a finished type of block. I mean, just looking at that, I mean, that makes you feel just as good as those guys out there. So
it's awesome when you could get a kid to start getting momentum.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Once they start getting momentum and they get a feel and that feeling and that high, it's like, man, all right. And then everybody else around them, same thing. Yeah. But so we obviously don't want to live life with regret. But if you could go back and do it again, is there some things that you might have do differently, or are you pretty content with the way that you handle your business?
No, there is quite a bit. I mean, once you think back through it, there's a lot of things I would like to do weightlifting wise. Because I still work out as much as I can, as much as my body lets me handle. But there's some things workout wise that I would change up a little bit. Maybe not going so heavy. Maybe doing a little bit more plyometric type workouts. Sure. Maybe working on my flexibility. So in those aspects, I would definitely change some of the stuff. As far as on the field stuff, I feel like for the most part, I would give it my all. Maybe if I could just tune up my eating habits back then, that's a big thing. My nutrition back then, I think there was a couple years in college where I was living off fast food, just because, it's hard to get your food and it's hard to go to the chow hall and get all this stuff. So you're living off fast food. So definitely the nutrition part, I think there's a couple years where I look back and I'm like, oh man,
dang, could have been a little bit different.
Better. Leaner, healthier, that kind of stuff. And maybe able to recover a little bit better. So
it does make a difference.
Oh, it makes a huge difference. I mean,
but it's hard to sell sleep and nutrition. We could sell supplements all day. You may make them all pretty infomercials, having this person flex their bicep, saying this is the way they got it. But it's hard to sell sleep and nutrition. But that's like, that's the tip of the spear right there. That's what we need to be focusing on the most, so to say.
Yeah. And I would say, you asked me about the challenges. That's another big challenge with the youth. You're always trying to tell them, hey man, maybe cut down a little bit in this, maybe add a little bit more of that. So that's another challenge with some of these kids that you see out there.
Oh man, phones.
Oh yeah, the phones. Yeah,
things like that.
It's a
different world. I mean, and I feel like even today, recruiting is definitely changed as well. Like I know a lot of recruiters, they're not just they're still going to games and showing up on Friday night or basketball games and stuff, but now they're they're being able to see kids through social media, through this type.
They don't even got to leave their office.
They don't even have to leave the office. So, it's definitely changed the game. Sometimes it does kind of affect culture. It could be a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because it does sometimes create a little bit of selfishness as well. And kids want to get the highlights and they want to, that type of thing, which has pros and cons.
Double-edged sword.
It definitely is. But it could also help a kid from a small town get looks where he may have not, if it wasn't for that video that got to the right person or something like that. So it's definitely changed. I don't know.
Yeah, I've heard a lot. I mean, it's different. When I went through it, obviously a long time ago, I always knew that obviously you had to do good in your sport and you had to do all that stuff. But what I was always told a lot is if you're good at another sport, that makes it even better. So even though, I did what I did in football, we still played in a small town. And you still very rarely played, the bigger schools where the scouts would come and kind of compare you. Oh, yeah, you did this, but it was against this team. You didn't play any big schools, so we don't know. But if you wrestle or you did track and you're beating all the big schools, that's another way that you get looked at. So that's another reason why, playing other sports, it's really important.
More exposure.
Yeah, more exposure. But now, like you said, with the social media, it's a little bit different, right? It's like you said, they don't really come down and, scout you as they would back then. But so it was just a different time. When I went through it, it was, I had the fortune of that. Coaches would go to my wrestling meets. They go to the track meets too, so it's just different.
Media is different now at the high school level, man. It's a whole different beast.
Yeah. Back then, especially with baseball and baseball specifically, a lot of times the guys from the small towns would get seen because recruits are going to see a opposing team you're playing. You might catch their eye. And I know lots of guys have gotten either drafted or picked up because of that.
Yeah. Do you, this is kind of just a curious question for me. You still watch the NFL?
I don't catch the full game because a lot of times I'm like, okay. I hate to say it, but it seems a little bit boring. I kind of watch towards the later part of the season. That's when I'm like, okay, it's a little bit more interesting.
Like
because sometimes I hate to say it, but I'm like, man, it doesn't seem like they're even playing that hard. It seems like they're just. But then later on, we start watching a little bit more and more. But it is also hard because I'm coaching and you're trying to prep on the weekends for all your stuff. But,
right. And you're still playing the game yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
Just in a different way.
Yeah.
So you played in Pac-10, Pac-12 at the time. So I guess yesterday was the last of the Pac-12.
Yeah.
What's your you still watch a lot of college football and follow the
not as
Arizona
much as
State or?
I follow them, but we haven't been doing too good and whatnot. But it's a little bit harder for me to catch up with the games for college. And I know whatever's happening with the Pac-12 nowadays, I know a lot of people are up in arms about it. And I haven't been able to go to any of the games, but it's just like you said, it's different times. I don't know all the background with what's going on with the Pac-12.
I know Arizona State went through a little with Herm Edwards. There was kind of a mess there, but they have a new staff. It seems like it's head in the right direction. So hopefully the future holds that promise.
It's surprising because I don't know if you guys ever been to Tempe or whatnot, but that area is just, it's an awesome place
Beautiful,
to live.
yeah.
It's really nice. And especially now, when I went there, it was nice. And now it seems like they just remodeled the whole area around there. I haven't been back there and I don't even know how long anymore, but it's just a whole different
It's exploded.
place. Yeah, it's really nice. The facilities are just top notch. So it's kind of hard for me to understand why they can't seem to land a lot of recruits there because it's such a nice place.
Yeah. So we asked this question on our last podcast. Coaches, right? We don't. How would I put this? I don't want to say this incorrectly. We don't want to play favorites. Don't play your favorites. But at the end of the day, coaches have favorites. The hardworking kids, the hard-nosed kids, the kids that are going to go out there and give it their all. What's your favorite type of football player to coach?
Just the coachable kid, the kid that it doesn't have to be the most athletic or the highest achieving kid. It's just that kid that shows up day after day with a good attitude, with just a good spirit, does what he's asked to do, and affects your other kids with a positive attitude.
Right.
Those are the type of kids that you always want, and you always want, and then to become your favorite kids, not just because they're the best kids, it's just because they're the hardest workers. And every team that I've had, you've had your kids that, they're not the most athletic or not, but they show up, they play hard, and those
They're consistent.
And obviously those make your day so much easier. You can rely on them. There's times where those kids are the guys that are leading, the calisthenics. They're leading some of the plays, so you put a lot more on them. And those types of
those are the type of kids that develop successful programs. Right there.
Yeah. Well, thanks for your time, Victor. Any final thing you want to say, or?
I appreciate being here with you guys. More than anything, I like I told you before, I love giving back to the community. I love working with the kids, not only in high school but in the youth. I think it matters in our town. I think there's a lot of good things that we do, and that way there's a lot of good people that help out. And I mean, the more, like, you guys are doing a great thing here, exposing those people that that put in a lot of work in the community, and also making the community aware of what we have in this town.
Right.
There's a lot of good people in this town. There's a lot. Sometimes it kind of gets lost because we don't, not that we have to put them on a pedestal, but we should show our kids that there is a lot of good that's come out of here.
Yeah.
And it's nice to give credit when credit's due.
Yeah, definitely.
100%.
Yeah, it's a nice thing you guys are doing for that.
Well, thank you.
So,
well, thanks for being willing and taking the time to come on and share your story. And we have a lot of high school, college athletes that follow this, youth athletes, a lot of parents and stuff like that. So we always want to share your story, number one, but also provide those leadership, those character traits to these younger athletes, because especially in this generation, people complain, these kids today have no respect, whatever it is. But if we could continue to influence, inspire, and put good role models like yourself in front of them, like, that makes the world of difference. So we appreciate it.
Yeah, because I don't know you very well, but I have a high level of respect for you, because you played at the highest level, and here you are coming back to Porterville and coaching. Like, that's usually not how the story goes, but here you are, and you're doing that for our youth and community. And I really want to say thank you for doing that.
No, my pleasure, man. It's my home. It's my hometown. It's kind of a thing you're supposed to do a little bit. So.
Yeah, Zach and I were talking about it before you showed up, just playing at the highest level. Then, you're coming back and helping out with a youth track program at the middle school in Burton School District. So, I mean, that just shows what kind of person you are, and shows what athletics means to you and what these kids in this community means to you.
Definitely.
So, thank you. Thank you again for making the time.
Appreciate it, you guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cool.